Welcome back to Florida, where Republican officials are now attacking the recount with protests, lawsuits, and there have been, as you may have heard, false claims of fraud. But this playbook actually goes back a long ways. It's only more mainstream now. The New York Times says the tactics strikingly similar to what extreme GOP activists did in the 2000 federal recount. In Miami back then, GOP operatives seized on a false rumor to stage what became known as the Brooks Brothers riot. What you're witnessing there ultimately shut down the recount right here in Miami, and it never started up again. The man who reportedly orchestrated that riot was Trump's longtime fixer, Roger Stone.
When some of my operatives reported that two of the Democratic commissioners were attempting to take a sheaf of ballots, remove them from the counting room, this is what sparked the so-called Brooks Brothers riot. I said, flood the hall and don't let them shut that door.
Don't let them shut the door. I'm joined now by Florida State Representative Joseph Geller on the ground here. He was actually a Democratic official at the time in 2000, and in the HBO film Recount, he's actually the guy chased down the hall by these Brooks Brothers rioters.
That's right. Hi, I'm a lawyer with the Recount. I need a sample ballot, please. Thank you.
He's got a ballot!
No, it's a sample.
He stole a ballot! This guy works for Gore. He's a lawyer for Gore. He steals his ballot.
I'm a lawyer. You can't take a star turn, but not a moment most people in civil society and democracy want to have happen. What are you thinking as you watch all this today?
You know, it is strikingly similar. Fortunately, so far, it hasn't gone to the point that it did in 2000. But, you know, the way people are inciting possible violence, the way that they're telling lies about fraud, it's scary. And it looks like, you know, if things don't go right, it could happen again the way it did in 2000, where they did succeed in shutting down the counting.
What does it tell you that at that time, the rules of politics, in quotes, were that Republican senior officials and certainly candidate Bush kept a big distance from that, right? He didn't talk at all like the way Roger Stone talks. And today we have a president whipping up false voter fraud fears on Twitter before this thing even plays out.
Well, it's absolutely shocking. I mean, to see the governor of this state standing at the door of the people's house, the governor's mansion, and using it as a prop to tell untruths about what's going on, that's just disturbing. I am heartened, though, by what Circuit Judge Jack Tudor said yesterday when he looked there and said there's no evidence of fraud, and said both sides, but ramp it down, and that's what needs to happen. We need to respect the rule of law, and the most important thing is we need to get every vote counted, every lawful vote.
And that goes to the wider big news tonight that Democrat Bill Nelson is filing suit, trying to get more time. Everyone in Washington, D.C. has their eyes on that because more time could help the Democrats potentially, if the votes are there, win this seat. But do you really think he's likely to get that time?
I do. You know, the shocking thing to us in 2000, in the face of all these delay tactics that the Republicans used, we kept saying this is ridiculous. Sooner or later, they have to count all the votes. Well, it turned out we were wrong. Had they kept counting, the result would have been different. We need to count all the votes. And yes, I'm optimistic that the courts are going to recognize that these arbitrary time frames are just not enough time, for instance, for Palm Beach County. They need some time. Let's get all the lawful votes counted.
And briefly, with your history with Roger Stone, what do you think seeing him now say that he's afraid he's going to be indicted?
Well, I don't know Mr. Stone personally to speak of, but what was done in 2000, whoever did it, was despicable. They tried to pass this off on local activists. It was not. These were people that were congressional aides. We can't tolerate that in a free society. We have to put a stop to that. And this time, we have to make sure all the lawful votes get counted.
Representative Joseph Geller, thank you so much. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.